I know we've been doing a primary source study of the Civil War. I keep getting feedback of why are you holding on to the past? And I have two issues with that question. Number one, if the question is truly in earnest and out of ignorance, I have no problem answering it. But I also ask, these are the same people that are patriotic to a country that's functioning on a 300-year-old document. So if you have no problem with the Declaration of Independence, why do you have the problem with the study of slavery? If you have no problem with the United States Constitution, why do you have a problem with the study of abolition? If you have no problem with studying the Civil War, why do you have a problem studying the issues that were central to that conflict? Why is it, and this is something to ask yourself, if you truly are a person that feels we shouldn't be studying slavery, or slavery makes white people feel bad, or whatever it is that you feel, I ask, do you have that same energy to Holocaust survivors? Do you tell Jewish people, or would you put in writing on the internet, get over it, stop talking about it, it's 2024, the Holocaust is over? No, you won't. But you have to ask yourself why. What's the difference? And if the answer is obvious or not, that's something that you need to look within yourself, because I really feel that there are a lot of people that feel that way but haven't thought that all the way through. Why do you come why 9/11 slogan is never forget. Do you tell 9/11 survivors? I don't care. When Colin Kaepernick was and all of the NFL and then all of black athletes were protesting during the national anthem, many, dare I say, the majority of the white population was saying it was disrespectful to the military. Now, this is the same military that has horrible benefits. This is the same military that had shell shock and PTSD issues that weren't seen to. These are the same military people that were shamed when they came back from Vietnam. These are the same military people, because for whatever reason, white people act like they have the monopoly on who participated in what war when black folks participated in every war. These are the same black people that were hung in their United States military uniforms by white people. But we remember and respect the troops. My father, my grandfather was, well, so was my father, so was my parents, my grandfather, they were in the military too. So if I'm asked that question, why are you holding on to it? It allows me an opportunity, if the question is sincere, to contextualize how this time that is generally agreed upon to be jacked up connects to today. Perfect example. We're going to go back before America was formed into America's formation to see why that stuff back then is applicable now. This is coming out of the 1619 Project, page 104 in the section entitled Fear. Eventually, white colonists devised a new law enforcement institution, one that would serve a significant degree as a foundation for modern policing, the slave patrol. Okay. So the practices that came out of regulating people is what transferred into when they went from colonies to states. That was the inheritance of policing. It is not odd that we have the George Floyds, the Sandra Blands, the Tamir Rices, the names goes on and on, where we have this disproportionate policing. If you don't know how far back this goes, you lose sight of how consistent this is. If I can take you back to the point that we agree, we need to see where we stop agreeing. Even if most white people don't want to talk about it now, it is a general consensus that back then it was wrong. Now, here's the funny thing. During the time it's happening, white people never get it right. During antebellum, they said, don't end slavery because black people are happy. Look, they're singing while they work. They literally said that. Then, after the Civil War, of course black people are happy. They're free. Now, they were free without land to cultivate, food to eat, or any, financial floor that has been given to all immigrants and quote unquote citizens of the country. The Homestead Act, the farming subsidies, state universities were free to white people before they started letting black people in it. All of these things that were done to get these poor people up were given an economic floor. Black people have never been given that. Then it goes into separate but equal. Well, of course they're happy. They got the same thing that we got. We just don't have to share. Then after the civil rights, well, of course, now they got the civil rights. They're getting everything free, even though more people benefit from welfare and tax write-offs. In fact, there are more tax write-off incentives for wealthy, because the more wealthy you get in this country, the less diverse you get. If you look at the tax law makes bigger provisions than the entire welfare system, which black people do not even function the majority of the welfare system, with 12% of the country. So how could we be this drain on the welfare system? If the welfare system is a drain, it is not black folks that's doing it. It's just not enough of us. It's just not enough of us. So, even further, let's go back. The Negro Act of 1740, which was designed to force enslaved people into due subjugation and obedience. These are laws that during the colonial days, this is happening right before the transfer of the country. What do you think happened? Because you got the Naturalization Act in 1790. Read this stuff. I'm not saying you got to agree with me, but at least know what you're talking about. You got the Naturalization Act of 1790 that says you have to be white to be a citizen. Now, this is after 1776. So we have the Negro Act of 1740 that's saying we are forcing these people into obedience and subjugation. You have the forming of the country. And then right after that, you have in 1790, that you have to be white. This is America now. Now we're in America. You have to be white to be a citizen. As we keep moving forward, because then in 1816, 1790, just less than 20 years later, 1816, they start colonization, start trying to get rid of black folks. They're shipping them out of the country. That's what colonization is. And that was done by the American Colonization Society all the way up to Abraham Lincoln, where Abraham Lincoln takes it over and the national government starts to do it. The federal government starts to do it. And they trying to get rid of black folks. And then in 1863, he really does it and starts sending black folks to Haiti. That goes belly up because they didn't put any effort in it. The same thing they did with Liberia in 1820. And because they're just trying to get rid of it. And they called it colonization, and it wasn't colonization. And I've covered that in my other videos. Because colonization, there is a connection between the imperial nation and the satellite colony. There is none. They were sending them off to become citizens somewhere else. So they were trying to get rid of black folks. Once Lincoln finally saw that colonization is not going to work, he redoes slavery into penal slavery. That's why the 13th Amendment says you can have slavery as long as the courts control it. Black folks are now, consistent with the law now, are disproportionately incarcerated more than anywhere else in the world. And they're hired out to make money for white corporations. Because the same year, in 1865, you said, well, there's no connection to what's happening now to what happened then. Yes, it is. Because the 1865, after Lincoln got killed, they started colonization immediately after that. So they just started arresting black folks. Of course, they got no money, they got no job. They send them, they put them in jail, say, oh, well, the jails aren't big enough. We have to have somewhere for them to stay, so we will lease the prisoners out back to the plantations that they were on. And that happened into the 1860s. Now, this is during the time that Reconstruction is happening, where the 14th and 15th Amendment are going on, because 13th Amendment, the change of slavery from chattel slavery to penal slavery. 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law. 15th Amendment, black folks can vote. But when they said black folks can vote, they relegated black folks voting, the process, to the states. So the states inhibited their right to vote. We'll leave that alone. As we're moving through time, I'm showing you, okay, where is the break that we disagree? From slavery to where you say, okay. Because every time, if white folks got it wrong, in antebellum, they said black folks was happy. During slavery, they said black folks was happy. Immediately after chattel slavery ends and penal slavery begins, they say black folks is happy. During Separate but Equal, Plessy v. Ferguson, they say black folks is happy. After Brown, integration, oh, black folks are definitely happy. After the Civil Rights Movement, affirmative action, oh yeah, of course, black folks are happy. During affirmative action is when they shot Medgar Evers, when they shot Martin Luther King Jr., when they shot Malcolm X, when they slaughtered the Black Panthers, when the FBI, full proof, COINTELPRO, murdered Fred Hampton. And those are the big names. That's all the way up to 1970. I was born in 71. So when did this stop? Where is that point that America was great? So the black folks that are wearing the MAGA hats, Just tell me the time. I'm not even disagreeing, but I'm an expert in the history of this country. I missed it. Help a brother out. Because there are no primary sources to know great. Now, great things have happened, don't get me wrong. But when was America great? Let's take black folks out of it. When was America great for Native Americans? When was America great for Mexicans? When they took the western part of the country from them during the Mexican-American War? Or now that they're talking about, oh, build a wall, they're immigrants, they're taking our jobs. And fear politics have been used since the 17th century. I don't understand how this works. White people control 96% of the corporations in this country. They, who own the companies, tell the poor white people, these other people are going to take your jobs. I do all the hiring because I own the companies. The only way somebody can take your job is if I give them to them. How I want to meet these people. I want to sit down and talk to them and find out how they do not process that an immigrant, a black person, whoever it is, poor white people are scared of taking their jobs. A rich white person has to give it to them. But this has been going on since the 1700s. It's even used within the white community. Oh, when the Irish people come, they're going to take your jobs. When the Italian people come, they're going to take your jobs. When the Jewish people come, they're going to take your jobs. Within white folks, they do that. So it really amps up when it gets to Native Americans, Mexicans, or black folks. And in this day of Make America Great Again and vote for me because I'm a black woman and never did nothing for black folks really, or been a leadership name in politics as to where black folks know who I am, but now all of a sudden I'm super black woman. I don't understand that politics either, but black folks is going for that. Nobody was saying nothing about Kamala Harris should be running for president until Joe Biden backed out. Now, all of a sudden, she's Superwoman, and ain't nobody asked her if she could fly. In America, we make believe what we want to believe. America was once great. Yeah, it was. When? You're just a victim. How am I a victim? What part of my life is a victim? A victim has had to have lost. You would have to know me if I was a victim. Give me some facts, because I'm basing what I'm saying based off of historical data. We have to become thinkers, because the less we think and the more we function off of subjective feelings, we start to see the chaos and madness manifest in our society. The pronoun thing. I am something I'm not. But because I think it, you got to think it too. Either I got two X's on my chromosomes or I have two different, I got an XY. Nothing is going to change that. No matter what I think, no matter how I feel, that is a biological difference. And if I say I have two X's and I have an X and a Y, that doesn't mean anything. That's just like if I say I have four arms. I don't. I can feel that I do, but I don't. I can say this country was great at one time. Be specific. I can say it's better than here or better than there. But if you were saying this country was great, I'm going to ask you when. And there was a time that this country was horrible for women. It's horrible for Native Americans. It's horrible for black folks. It was horrible for Mexicans. It was horrible for Asians. So that is why we have to keep this historical understanding, because right now we can get white folks to agree. Just like when when Martin Luther King Jr. was shot, they passed some holiday legislation to distract black folks, but it had nothing to do with civil rights. But Lyndon B. Johnson passed it. And it hearkened me back to George Floyd. They came up with not passing the George Floyd Policing Act, not the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. Juneteenth, which was at the time was 150 years ago. Now it's 160 years ago. For something that only applies to Texas. Why is that a national holiday? And what did that have to do with George Floyd? If you don't know history, you don't know when something is happening again. I wish it would come to me what that pointless holiday was. Man, Kwanzaa maybe? No, I don't know if it was Kwanzaa. It was something. But it was some national recognition of something for black folks, but it had nothing to do with civil rights. It had nothing to do with violence in our communities. It had nothing to do with what Martin Luther King Jr. stood for. But that same distraction was done. For whatever reason, I cannot find the circle of people to have this conversation with. The people on the internet, they'll type something, but they may or may not be sincere. They may or may not have any information. I really want to have these conversations with these people that are Democrats, hardcore believing Democrats. Because to me, that's the same thing as MAGA. Especially when it comes to the black community and black history. Not black history, American history. Because the Democrats have been they're no different. They're no different than the Republicans. But that's what really, and I understand this country was built on hypocrisy. A country built on principles of freedom by 11 of the first 16 presidents. Not just the president, the number one guy, owned slaves. And Thomas Jefferson was saying, God is against us. There's no way we can keep doing this. And if God is just, this is going to work out well for us. So it's one thing in doing something, being a man of your time and just not knowing. He knew it, which means the rest of those guys knew it because he was publishing it. He was saying, guys, we really shouldn't be doing this. But he kept doing it, and there's no other reason but out of greed. So my question is, why are scholars of history, particularly American history, particularly slavery, victims? Are Do you tell that to Southern people? When they say the Civil War was about states' rights, do you call them victims? I haven't heard it. So why are we so hypocritically applicable when it comes to when history applies and when it doesn't?